In a world where faith defined existence, Spain created something that would become synonymous with terror and persecution. The Spanish Inquisition, not just a historical footnote, but a machinery of fear that would last for over 350 years. This isn't just another historical tale, it's a stark reminder of how the quest for religious purity transformed into a nightmare that haunted generations. Imagine walking through the streets of 15th century Spain, where a mere whisper could seal your fate, where your neighbors could become your accusers, and where the smoke of burning stakes regularly darkened the sky. This was the reality of the Spanish Inquisition. Let's set the stage for this dramatic chapter in human history. Medieval Spain wasn't the unified country we know today. It was a land where Christians, Muslims, and Jews had coexisted for centuries in a delicate balance. This period was known as convivencia, meaning coexistence. Cities like Toledo and Córdoba were beacons of learning, where scholars of all faiths shared knowledge and culture. But in 1469, everything changed. The marriage of Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon created a powerful Catholic monarchy. Their dream? A Spain united under one faith, one crown, and one purpose. The year 1478 marked the birth of an institution that would become infamous, the Spanish Inquisition. Now, you might wonder, why did Spain need an Inquisition? The answer lies in a peculiar problem here. Thousands of Jews had converted to Christianity, becoming known as conversos. But suspicions grew that many were secretly practicing their old faith. These crypto-Jews became the Inquisition's first targets. The machinery of the Inquisition was terrifyingly efficient. At its head sat the Grand Inquisitor, appointed by the crown and armed with nearly unlimited power. The first Grand Inquisitor, Tomás de Torquemada, would become a name that struck fear into hearts across Spain. Here's where things get fascinating and disturbing. The Inquisition developed a system of terror that was remarkably modern in its approach. They created detailed manuals for interrogation, elaborate record-keeping systems, and a network of informants that would make modern intelligence agencies envious. The process began with the Edict of Grace. Inquisitors would arrive in a town and announce a period during which people could confess their sins or denounce others. What followed was often a flood of accusations, as neighbors accused neighbors, often settling old scores under the guise of religious duty. But it's the methods of the Inquisition that were truly extraordinary. Unlike common belief, they didn't simply torture everyone. Their psychological tactics were far more refined. They would keep suspects in isolation, sometimes for years. They used sleep deprivation, stress positions, and the constant threat of torture, methods that sound disturbingly familiar to modern ears. When torture was employed, it was done with clinical precision. The Inquisition had strict rules. Torture could only be applied once, though they cleverly defined a session as continuing until the torturer took a break, and it couldn't result in death or permanent injury. Their favorite methods included the strappado, where victims were hung by their wrists, and the water torture, where water was poured down the throat to simulate drowning. But perhaps the most dramatic spectacle was the auto da fe, the act of faith. These were elaborate public ceremonies where judgments were announced and punishments carried out. Imagine a town square packed with thousands of spectators, watching as condemned heretics were paraded in yellow San Benito's penitential garments, marked with flames and devils. The Inquisition's reach extended far beyond just Jews. As time went on, they turned their attention to Protestants, Muslims, especially converted ones called Moriscos, and anyone accused of heretical behavior. Even owning a Bible in Spanish could be enough to attract their attention. Here's a shocking detail. The Inquisition even developed an early form of profiling. They created detailed lists of suspicious behaviors, avoiding pork, changing clothes on Saturdays, or even using clean tablecloths on the Sabbath could mark someone as a secret Jew. The numbers tell a grim story. While exact figures are debated, historians estimate that between 1478 and 1834, the Spanish Inquisition tried approximately 150,000 people, executing around 3,000 to 5,000. But these numbers don't capture the true scope of its impact. Thousands more were imprisoned, tortured, or forced to flee their homes. Some cases were particularly noteworthy. Take Maria de Zúñiga, a wealthy widow accused of Judaism in 1590. She endured 2 years of imprisonment and torture before being burned at the stake. Her real crime: she had maintained business relationships with converted Jews and continued to wear jewelry inherited from her Jewish grandmother. Or consider the case of Diego Rodriguez Lucero, the demon of Córdoba. As an inquisitor, he was so zealous that he accused over 400 people of heresy in just 2 years, causing such outrage that even the Inquisition itself had to intervene. The Inquisition's methods were sometimes bizarrely modern. They developed an early form of forensic documentation, creating detailed records of interrogations, complete with sketches of torture devices and descriptions of prisoners' reactions. These records survive today, providing historians with chilling insights into their operations. But perhaps the most surprising aspect was its longevity. The Spanish Inquisition lasted until 1834, well into the age of steam engines and industrial revolution. Its final years saw it struggling to control the spread of Enlightenment ideas, banning books and persecuting free thinkers. The impact of the Inquisition extended far beyond Spain's borders. It became a model for similar institutions in Portugal and Spanish colonies in the Americas. The Portuguese Inquisition would later become notorious for its persecution of converted Hindus in Goa, India. The legacy of the Spanish Inquisition lives on in our collective memory. It gave us the term inquisitorial to describe harsh questioning, and its shadows can be seen in modern debates about religious freedom, state surveillance, and the balance between security and liberty. In its final years, the Inquisition became a shadow of its former self. Napoleon's invasion of Spain in 1808 dealt it a serious blow, and it was briefly abolished. Though temporarily restored by Ferdinand VII in 1814, it was finally abolished in 1834, ending 3.5 centuries of religious persecution. Today, the Spanish Inquisition serves as a powerful reminder of how institutions created to protect faith can become instruments of terror. Its story continues to fascinate and horrify, teaching us valuable lessons about the dangers of religious persecution and the importance of protecting individual rights and freedoms. The Spanish Inquisition's legacy reminds us that the battle between tolerance and persecution, between faith and fear, continues to shape our world today. It stands as a warning from history about the dangers of allowing any institution, religious or secular, to wield unchecked power over people's lives and beliefs.